Adam Fowler, welcome to the Cybersecurity 101 podcast with Larry and Joe. Adam, please tell us a little bit about yourself. And first of all, where do you live?
Yes, Adam Fowler. I'm from South Australia, which I don't know if you can tell from my accent or not, but yep, been in Australia all my life, born and bred here.
That is awesome. Now, could you tell our listeners a little bit about how you and I got connected?
Sure. So, social media being the thing that it is, I think at some stage I came across probably one of your posts where I can't recall if you were either applying for a Microsoft MVP and been referred and wanted some advice, or you just got into the program and were looking for some advice on how you continue it and make the most of it.
Can you tell our listeners what is the Microsoft MVP program?
Yeah, definitely. I guess just to preface that, I'm currently not a Microsoft MVP. It used to be from, I have to look at my nice Microsoft trophy here, from 2017 to 2022, so 5 years.
Wow.
What is a Microsoft MVP? It is someone that Microsoft recognizes as having significant community contributions in the general space of Microsoft. It could be anything from people often link MVP to being the people that go to talks and do a lot of talking in front of people, conferences, etc. But there's a lot more to it than that. You can be someone that contributes a lot in your blog posts or social media or maybe forums where you're giving advice, mentoring, all different ways. So there's not really a limit as to where it can apply or not. It's really if you're providing a positive influence in that space. Yeah.
Got it. And so you were an MVP for 5 years. What was your specialty focus area?
I started as a data center and cloud, and then pivoted across to Microsoft 365 apps and services.
Okay. Data center and cloud. What is that? Is that Windows Server? Tell us a little bit about, what is data center and cloud?
Yeah, so these high level categories often have like several pieces that could fit under it. For me at the time, I think I was posting a lot around group policy, being in 2017 and a less cloudy time. But with Microsoft's focus away from the on-premises type solutions, I myself was focusing more on M365, which is why I then jumped across to that. As I said, like each category has several different areas, so you can focus in on one thing. Like for me, again, it was Active Directory and group policy type things.
So you made this transition of being an on-prem person to a cloud person, and you got recognized with this like really elite title as being one of the top experts in Microsoft Cloud. That's a pretty big transition to make that jump.
It was, and I'm probably at the time, I was probably in the minority of the MVP space of being someone that wasn't, MSP and providing services for customers. I was the in-house IT person. But the place that I worked, M365 was my baby, and I got to grow it from almost nothing to the entire stack, full E5, deploying most parts of it. So that journey that I took, a bit like this podcast and Larry's journey, the journey that I took on starting with almost nothing and looking, getting an understanding of it, deploying service after service, Exchange Online, SharePoint, and all the rest. I got to learn a lot, troubleshoot a lot, and experience a lot, and share that along the way.
So when you become a Microsoft MVP, do you get to be one for life, or how does that work?
It's done on a yearly basis. So when you first get recommended by someone, you need to document all the things that you're doing in that space. If you're lucky enough for Microsoft to go, yes, that looks like you're doing enough to class as an MVP, here's a badge. That will get reviewed on a yearly basis. And every year you do need to submit everything you've done over the last 12 months. So you do need to demonstrate that you're continuing. It's not a badge that you just get to keep forever. I actually had to virtually hand my badge back when I got a job at Microsoft. So you also can't be a Microsoft employee and hold an MVP badge. So that was why after 5 years, I don't have any more.
So I want to hear all about your transition to working for Microsoft. That sounds like a pretty fascinating transition. If you don't mind, let's go back. So have you always lived in South Australia?
I have, yes,
Okay.
yes.
And did you go to college after school, or did you go directly to the workplace? What was your kind of youth and transition to work look like?
Yeah, so from high school, didn't actually pass year 12. I missed out by 1 point. And really was at a stage where I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I know I like computers. I don't know what to do though. And then I think I was delivering pizzas at the time. So from that, my parents found a job advert in the paper and said, "Oh, look, here's a call center. Go apply for that." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I suppose." Applied for the call center job. It was a new call center opening up. Got in there as they were sort of launching, and it was for a telecommunications company. Um, about 6 months into that, they advertised for an internal person. I'm like, oh, well, I'm not going to pick me. I've got no IT experience. Why would they pick me? So I didn't even apply for. I took myself out of even applying for the internal role. And I thought, oh, I'll just do my thing as a call center operator. Um, Luckily for me, they didn't find anyone in the first advert. There's a few people that interviewed, didn't find anyone. So they advertised it internally, going, "We still need an IT person." I'm like, "Oh, well, they can't find anyone. Maybe I've got a better chance at actually getting a job." And I did. So I was in internal IT support for the call center, um, and yeah, went from there. So I did the internal sort of IT help desk type, walking up to people with their problems on the floor for the call center. Pivoted across to, I'm using the word pivot, I shouldn't. I moved across to a different help desk role at an airline. And then from
Wait,
that,
wait,
moved
how did
up.
wait, how
Yeah,
did
yeah.
how did this happen? How did you go
Yeah,
from
Oh,
the call center to the airline? That sounds like an interesting story.
that's a big jump.
um, yeah, it's probably not too much interesting because really just, just saw the job advertised, interviewed for it, and managed to get it.
Okay.
Um,
But that
Yeah,
so
I'm trying to condense
you
this
had the
into a
IT.
podcast form as well because I've
Yeah.
got 20+ years history here.
Okay, got it. So there's a lot to go through, right?
Oh, there's a couple more steps. Let me rush through it for you, and then you can
Yeah.
jump back to some questions on each. So I did the started doing a help desk job for the airline. Moved up to desktop support after a couple of years. Did that for like 3 months. Then moved to a Wintel, what they call the Wintel role, which was a Windows administrator. Um, and then did that for a little while. Then moved across to a law firm and was a systems engineer there with a Microsoft focus. Moved my way up to operations supervisor, IT operations manager, IT director at the end of it.
Wow.
And then jumped across to Microsoft to be a customer success account manager there. I did that for a year and a half, and then I'm at my current role where I'm a principal solutions architect for a cybersecurity company. Doing a pre-sales type role for Microsoft Cloud Solutions.
Got it. So you kind of you were in several roles in internal IT, and then how what was your transition to working for Microsoft like? Did you see the advertisement or like what was that like? That transition?
Yeah, well, I was sort of sitting in the IT director chair, going, "Oh yeah, I wonder what my future will be. Where do you go from here?" Um, and being an MVP for 5 years at that time, I was like, well, always had this thing in the back of my mind going, I would like to work for Microsoft, but that's never going to happen. And yeah, I just saw an advert on LinkedIn for the role, messaged the person that had put it there, and went through multiple interviews to eventually, luckily, get the role at the end.
So what did you do? What does a CSM for Microsoft consist of for someone that is not familiar with it?
Yeah, so it's the customer success account manager, which used to be called the technical account manager. So customers that have a unified support agreement, which used to be called a premier support agreement with Microsoft. So they're paying Microsoft extra money to get extra support. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's the one-liner. As part of having that agreement with Microsoft, you get a customer success account manager connected to you. So the role of that is there's elements of account manager, but it's much more making sure you're getting the value of your Microsoft investment, talking around potential future projects and connecting up with other Microsoft people to the company where it makes sense. If they're going, oh, we're thinking about going Sentinel and having a SIEM, cool. All right, well, let me find the person in Microsoft that's aligned to your account and can talk to you about that and see if that makes sense for you.
And how many total customers did you manage?
I was looking after government, so it depends how you count government.
Okay.
Sort of one customer, sort of 100, but yeah.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the role?
Yes and no. I very, very much enjoyed working at Microsoft. As with anywhere, everywhere has positives and negatives, but there's a lot of good people at Microsoft, and getting in front of customers and just talking them through where they are and what they could do without, I try and approach things without as much of a bias, not just going, oh, you should go Microsoft all the things. It's like, well, let's work out what makes sense and where you should apply it. I'm not going to say Microsoft is the right answer all the time, every time. There's times where it doesn't make sense. So I quite enjoy that, big picture road mapping type work, right, which is now why I'm doing pre-sales for exactly that.
So, okay, that's a question I had for you. So you're a CSAM for Microsoft Unified Support, previously known as Microsoft Premier, affectionately known. Tell me about the transition to leaving and joining a Microsoft partner doing cybersecurity pre-sales.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, for deciding to walk away from Microsoft is a big one in itself. It took me a long time to process that and make the decision to go, yeah, I need to take this other opportunity. I sort of lost track of my thoughts because there was a lot that happened at that time. Definitely emotional in several ways. Plus, the day before I was going to resign, I got run over by a car. So
Oh no!
Yeah, I was crossing the road and bounced off the bonnet of a car that went through traffic where they shouldn't have. So yeah, a few things happened, and that was only, I'm just looking at the calendar now, there's less than 12 months ago that happened. So luckily, some minor injuries and just needed some rest to recover. But
that's so scary.
Sidetrack there. But yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're okay. And are you? How are you feeling now? Are you totally healed from it, or are you still dealing with it?
Yeah. I couldn't walk properly. I couldn't put any weight on my leg for a month, which was frustrating because I was about to resign from my role and then spend a month in America, Hawaii and Los Angeles. So luckily my legs sort of just stopped hurting. I was able to walk just in time for the holiday. So I was in your neck of the woods in January this year. I went to LA and Disneyland, etc.
Now, Adam, if you had been hit by the car in California, you wouldn't need to work again the rest of your life. You'd be able to sue someone and live in.
Oh yeah, it's over with.
But I don't know how it works over in on the other side of the pond.
It's very as much as there's a lot of similarities between Australia and United States, there's a lot of differences as well. Like we don't have billboards everywhere. 1-800-LAW. If you just get hit by a car, then call us. They have all the pharmaceutical ads and all the lawyer ads and all the other things that you get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you're right. Sadly, didn't get payouts from this end, but I'm healthy, which is much more important.
Yeah, way more important. So you're healthy. It's been about a year. How has the last year been for you? Tell us about that role and what do you do day to day in your current role?
Yeah. So I guess coming back to it, up until I went to Microsoft, I was 100% on the customer side. So, obviously dealing with vendors and Microsoft partners all the time, but it's a fence you don't really get to peek over. So yeah, getting my head around what it's like to work for a vendor was that Microsoft time. And now I'm looking at that partner side, which is where I am now, and it's another. I knew what they did from the outside, but on the inside, there's been a lot to learn. Day to day, my role is really talking to customers, understanding. Someone will come to me going, "Oh yeah, we'll talk to the customer." They're looking at going to the Defender stack. So it's really understanding where they are, where they need to get to. What would that take to get there, if that's what they want? and then building like a statement of work to show those steps, pricing it, working out the efforts, and making sure I'm putting something in front of the customer that makes sense as to what they want to achieve. That's my day-to-day role, and I quite enjoy that challenge.
What a big change, right? From going from internal IT to Microsoft and support side, now professional services, consulting, pre-sales, writing proposals. I assume you probably do demos and things too, like a lot of different kind of roles. Question is what's next? Like, what's your future vision for where you really want to go and take your career?
Well, it's funny. I couldn't answer that question when I was probably 19, and I still can't really answer it now. I, just like most people, originally had this, long-term, maybe hopefully one day vision of climbing the ladder and working my way up, which I did, getting to IT director. I did that for a year. But when I got to that stage and was doing it for a while, again, you're seeing it from the outside, you're like, yeah, I reckon I could do that. That looks like cool stuff. But once you're actually in it, you actually realize what it really is, which is a lot of paperwork and all the other bits and pieces that, directors have to do. So it's probably at that stage that I made a bit of a different conscious decision going, I'm not trying to climb any ladders anymore. And it was never something like this. It wasn't a primary goal. It was just, back there. Much more of a mindset now where I want to do things that I enjoy. Like, that is my number one thing. I want to do a job that I enjoy doing and I look forward to doing. And no job is 100% that, right? But as long as it's enough of I get to do cool stuff or do things I enjoy versus, there's always paperwork or other things. That's really it. Of course, I'm getting as much money as possible to do so, but I'd much more prefer to enjoy what I'm doing than have lots of money and not be happy.
And so now bringing it back to being a Microsoft MVP again, what is your kind of primary reason for wanting to be a Microsoft MVP?
So I guess, since leaving Microsoft, I'm now chasing the idea of being an MVP again. There's probably 2 or 3 top reasons. One is I don't have it and I want it. That the general human nature, right? I gave it back to work at Microsoft, and I've left Microsoft, so now I want it back again. But honestly, it needs to be well deserved. It can't be just for the sake of having it, right? So I'm trying to do a lot more community contribution things, and the most common things I do is a lot of social media type awareness. I've got a few different Microsoft news feeds that connect to the Microsoft official blogs, etc., and tech community, and often I have feeds of those so people can just follow them. But if there's ones of interest that I'll comment on, I'll reshare those and add my own 2 cents or take on it. I do blog posts. So I did a bit of a series on several areas of M365 and CIS benchmarks. So if you haven't read those or know about them, check my site at adamfowlerit.com. I do mentoring as well. So I'll have people randomly contact me looking for advice. So I've got 3 or 4 on the go. And they can sometimes just be check-ins every 3 months just to see how they're going. They're people, I guess, like where you used to be, Larry, where they're either looking to enter the IT workforce, just don't know where to start, what to do. And also I co-run a user group in Adelaide, South Australia here, which I used to run, handed it over, and now I've come back to co-run it, which is the Microsoft Adelaide IT Pro community. So I do that once a month as well. So there's several things I'm doing. So I'm hopefully doing enough to get that badge back. But as I said, it's not something that you just get for the sake of it. You do need to show that you're doing all the things. So yeah.
And for those that don't know, what is kind of Microsoft's process for selecting an MVP? Is that known? Is that public? Is there anything you could share with people so that they kind of know, what this process is like?
It's a very secret sauce. So you can't say, here's the exact criteria you need to meet, and if you meet that, yep, guarantee you'll be an MVP. That doesn't exist. It's really, the high level of it is showing different ways that you're contributing and how much reach there is. Like, there's no, I can't imagine someone that's got their own blog that has 5 views a month being, because part of it is you have to show what's the impact of what you're doing. Sometimes that's an easy thing by saying it's just this amount of views. But also, if you're doing a one-to-one mentoring, obviously you're influencing one person, but it does take a lot more time and effort. So all these things are taken into account. So it's just demonstrating that you're doing a decent variety of things with the impact.
Got it. Okay, very good. Larry, I'm sure you have questions. Anything top of mind you'd like to ask Adam?
Yeah, so we know that you left Microsoft and now you're doing your own thing and all that, and now you want to get the Microsoft MVP again. Is that more of your competitive side too, to get it back, something that you lost? Because I know I would. I mean,
yeah, you've picked up something there, Larry. You're right, because when I first was applying for the MVP, something happened. I won't go into details, but it was just something. I was at an event or something, and someone said, "Oh, you can't go to this bit because that's for MVPs only." And I'm like, "Well, I want to be an MVP. Why can't I be an MVP? That's not fair." And that comes back to the other comment I made around just getting told you can't have that. That to me, that's a competition driver, right? It's like, well, I can do that, so I'm going to now prove it.
Yeah, I have a feeling. I have a feeling Larry is about to be an MVP because Larry's going to go after this thing now.
Yeah. So right now I'm just wrapping my head just around this being the SOC, and I'm starting to get a real good flow of it. But my plan is to be Microsoft MVP. So
yeah, and
I'm going to strive for it.
Yeah, I think a general take on it though is, and I would expect most MVPs would say this: you can't do this stuff with that as your primary goal. That's like the cream on top, the icing on the cake. Where if you're doing things to get to an MVP that you're not liking doing in the first place, once you get there, you'd be like, why am I doing this? Like, what was the point? It needs to be something that you're doing anyway. And maybe it's a bit of extra influence to kick you to do it a bit more. But if your sole purpose is to get that virtual badge, then you're probably not going to have a good time if you get there. You're not going to really appreciate it or want to continue doing it. It needs to be something you want to do anyway. I'm guessing, Joe, you've got the same take. If not, help.
Yeah, what's funny is, it's really not a recognition of who the smartest person in the room is at all.
No,
It's really a recognition of these people have helped the most number of people, or it's the spirit of someone of the MVP program that they want to recognize. And it is a mystery on who gets selected. I mean, I think what must have happened is they must have really lowered the bar the year that I was selected. Somehow I like slipped in thing. They probably made a mistake and it was like the wrong, Joe, and somehow I got in there. And I've somehow been able to kind of be the gray man and still maintain it somehow. But yeah, it's like for me personally, there was a period of my career when I wanted it and I sought it based on, for the exact same reasons you mentioned, Adam, like, oh, it's this exclusive club, I can't get in it. Okay, watch me, and I'm gonna go for it. And so for years, I was nominated by other MVPs, and it just didn't work out. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Like, I'm doing all the activities. That's strange. So then I kind of got depressed. I'm like, I see all these people on social media getting nominated. I'm like, what? I did all this work. What's going on? So then, the year that I said, okay, screw it, I'm done. I'm disappointed. I'm just gonna stop. I started focusing on mentoring and pouring into others, and I just started focusing on all this other stuff. And then a Microsoft employee recognized me for some of the work I did on the elections. So here in the US, you can volunteer to help elections and do some stuff to secure elections. And as a volunteer, I did a lot of work. And so they said, okay, for that work, we're going to nominate you. And for some other stuff I did. So it was like the year that I stopped trying and I really just started focusing on helping others. Then all of a sudden, and then it dawned on me. I'm like, oh, That's what they want. They don't want the person seeking it for this award. They want the person that's like just helping others, and I guess I just got randomly, or some mystery kind of happened on how I got picked. But yeah, I can really relate to what you're going through. I saw that's the reason I reached out to you, because I'm like,
Yeah.
man, that completely resonates with what I went through as well, So don't give up.
Yeah,
Just keep helping,
I
just
think
keep helping people,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the quality of your work changes when it depends what the focus is. Like, you can tell when someone's doing something as a passion project because they've got an interest in it. It just comes out of it. Like, you see it on YouTube and social media, etc. Most people can read the difference between someone that's doing it for the sake of doing it and just putting it down versus something they care about and believe in. And it's not that, we're not talking about, oh, we love Microsoft, we believe in Microsoft. It's we believe in helping people and providing useful information to someone. But whatever that is, troubleshooting, just this podcast of useful information for someone considering getting into cybersecurity, all that stuff. It's the passion behind it, I think, that often shines through and gets you to where you need to get to, which is why I come back to saying you can't chase the MVP for the sake of the MVP. It should be a byproduct of the stuff you're doing.
So let's talk about Larry. So let's assume Larry is seeking it for all the right reasons. He wants to be an MVP. What are 3 things Larry should do to start moving in that direction, for that?
I think first, content. You've got to work out how you're generating content, which again can be social media, forums, public speaking, whatever it is. What's your platform that you're going to talk to the world, or a subset of it? Can be Reddit, can be a Discord server. It doesn't matter what it is. Just work out what works for you and the way you want to communicate it. Some people are better at talking. Some people are better at writing. Doesn't matter. I think working that out and then keeping it going. Like, content is king. You need to keep producing content. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. I would never go back and read my first blog post because I'd probably then decide to delete them. And I probably won't listen to this podcast because I don't want to listen to myself back and go, oh, I should have said this, or why did I say that? So I think it's moving forward, generating the content. And also, I think it is making connections. You need, just like the corporate world, you need to make connections with other MVPs, talk to them, make connections with Microsoft employees if the situation arises. Put yourself out there, and putting yourself out there is probably the biggest hurdle. Just like before we started the podcast, listening to Larry's story, and I'm sure at the time, Larry, when you started all this, you're like, how am I going to get into cybersecurity? How am I? It's not even like it's probably impossible to you as an outcome.
When I started looking at all the criterias and stuff, because actually I started looking for work while I was in school. They were like, you got to have 5 years, and you got to have this, and you got to have that. And Joe even, he asked a couple of his friends in Microsoft, and it was just like a huge criteria, and it was just like, whoa. It's like, how am I ever gonna? How's this ever gonna happen? And Joe took a chance on me, and every day I'm so thankful for my job. So I really try to work hard at it. I really do. So, and I feel very blessed, and I just try to get after it every day, learn something new.
Which is awesome, right? Like that what you're saying, Larry, is exactly what anyone should want from their employer, right? Someone that's passionate about what they're doing and wants to do it well. When I used to interview people, it's less about the knowledge that they know and more about seeing their thought process and, to an element, what sort of person they are. Are they someone that is, respectful and has a bit of a drive? Like, I'm not expecting anyone to spend a bunch of out of hours time, learning things. I think that's an unreasonable expectation. But a passion for things, an interest, and the mindset that you're like, yeah, that makes sense. I can see where you're coming from. You want all different sorts of people in different ways, but they need to have the element of positivity. So I'm sure that took you a long way, Larry, that drive.
It did, and I got a great team. So I work on. I think it's we're team 2 up. So yeah, those guys. And believe me, I ask tons of questions, and I'm not afraid to ask. for me, it's about just getting it right. If it's something I don't understand, I'll ask everybody on my team. If they can't answer, if it's some time, I'll go all the way up the ladder. It doesn't matter. It's just about, getting it right and learning from it.
Yeah, I think IT is probably one of those industries that sees a lot more people lifting each other up. Maybe not 5-10 years ago plus, but these days I think there is a much more awareness that you're in it together, and a lot more of that attitude of just helping each other out because it's to a common goal.
Yeah.
So, question for you, Adam. How important is it to specialize? Like, if you want to be an MVP, to choose a specialization area. So you kind of talked about the data security, then M365. What is your current specialty focus that you're trying to be an MVP in?
Well, a good question, because I was tossing up between two. I was either going, well, security, or fail back to what I know well, M365. But security is quite an interesting one, because if I'm talking security, it probably relates to M365 anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm probably safer, for lack of a better word, going for the M365 one again, because I can still talk about security of M365 and it still be an M365 thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm not going to talk about security architecture in Azure or Power Platform or other areas, because it's not my area of knowledge. So yeah, probably M365 again.
Okay. A couple of interesting questions for you. Does Microsoft, when they're looking at your social media, do they look to see if you're posting about like things outside of your subject area? Like would they prefer your social media profile to be focused on that specialty area, or how much do they take into consideration?
Yeah, I think so. I guess two parts to that question is, one, I think you need to have enough of a focus on one of those top level categories. As I said, I can't recall them off the top of my head, but M365 obviously quite a big area. There's a lot under it. You can. For me, I am a generalist as well, so there's a lot of different areas I'll bounce around on. But if you do one thing in 10 different areas, you're probably not going to be an MVP, because they give it to you in a category, right? And there's no category that they're going to say, oh, you've done a lot in this space. So you do need to have somewhat of a focus, but it doesn't need to be, oh yeah, I'm the SharePoint guru and I do everything in SharePoint Online and that's all my 100% of my content. You don't need to be as specific as that, but you do need to have an area that's a bit wider, but still an area of focus. The second part is, they're not going to review, your X.com account and go, oh, he's only talking 10% Microsoft. That's not enough. Like, that's not a measure. If you're doing 10% of Microsoft, but the 10% posts get a lot of views and influence, then cool. That's the part that matters.
Can you shit post and still become an MVP?
I think if you ask many MVPs, the answer would be yes. Swift on security was a MVP for a couple of years. If you haven't, for those that are not aware, have a look at that account on X.com. There's definitely a lot of shit posting there, but at the same time, there's a huge amount of highly relevant and informative information, particularly on security. So, and not all of it positive to Microsoft. So yeah.
Okay, and that's kind of where I was going. Is are MVPs allowed to criticize Microsoft, or is that the wrong question? Is the criticism encouraged as long as it's constructive?
Yeah, look, I think if you're typing Microsoft with a $sign as the S and just talking absolute crap about it without any basis, well, why are you even going for those people shouldn't be going for an MVP anyway, right? But if you're doing things, calling out things that you're like, I think Microsoft could do better in this space, or this is not the way, like, I'm sure a bunch of MVPs are talking about Microsoft recall at the moment, and they shouldn't lose their badge for that. There are things that you can lose your badge for, like revealing Microsoft secrets. which they might be privy to, because when you, as you would know, Joe, when you become an MVP, you do need to sign an NDA, as you can become aware of things before the public does. So there's the element of being careful what you say. But yeah, you're definitely allowed to critique. But I mean, me generally, I'm not the sort to drag anything down for the sake of it. Like, I want constructive criticism. If I was receiving it, that's what I want to get. And if I'm giving it, that's what I want to give. I don't like this, but this is why, and this is how you can improve it.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. This has been so informative. So Larry, what are your kind of top remaining questions for Adam on the MVP program?
I got two questions. The first one is, when should I get started? And then my second one, I'll take after you answer my first one.
All right. First one, why haven't you started already?
I thought, personally, you just had to be this big Microsoft profile to get in it. You had to know all this stuff. And now now understand what a Microsoft MVP was. Because if you hear of MVP, that's that's your most valuable player or person. And on a football team, that's the player that, did the most for the team. But Microsoft looks at it, seems like a little bit different.
Yeah, it's not, as Joe said before, it's not the best on the team. It's like an enthusiasm award almost. It doesn't matter. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to be contributing positively. That could be talking about, you could be doing a post a day, a TikTok video on a Windows 11 tip. And you could just do that for a year and you'd probably get an MVP for that, because you can't say, oh, just because I showed you how to, a shortcut combo on a keyboard, why does that make me MVP? It's not the level of the information, it's the value of it. You don't have to think, well, if there's people that know more than me, why aren't they MVP first? It's not about knowing more. It's about actually bothering to turn up and doing that contributions. So that comes back to, you should really be doing it. If that's something you want to do, start working out how you're going to put stuff out there.
Yeah, I'm a definitely take some looks into that now.
Yeah. I usually, Larry, I usually send people back to this podcast, episode 1, and just encourage people to kind of hear your story and what you went through with school. You worked 40 hours a week or more during the week. At night, you went to school and you had family commitments. You sacrificed, worked hard for a couple years to get to where you are now. I would say to that person, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a lot of work. But if they're willing to put in the time and effort, I believe anyone can accomplish anything that they really want if they're willing to kind of put in the time and the effort. And you absolutely did that. And you absolutely earned your spot here at Patriot. And you're one of our top SOC analysts now, and you're doing a great job, man. So I definitely encourage people to listen to that first episode, because then they could listen to this one and they could see how far you've come. And then they can understand, it's going to take time. You're going to have to put nothing good is ever easy, So.
Yeah. And I have another step I want to take in Patriot, because now I'm in competition with my fellow analysts, believe me, in my head. So I got to catch Ray, man. Ray is awesome. So, I got to catch him, man. So that's in the back of my head, because Ray, I always ask him for questions, but yeah, I try to always compete with myself. So that's one thing I do. So I know I want to be a Microsoft MVP, not just to have the award. I think it's the road of getting there. I think that's going to be the funnest part. I'm not big on blogs, but I love podcasts and stuff like that. And maybe I figure out something else to do.
They do love the YouTube, man. YouTube is really big to Microsoft. They like to see that content out there, the video creations and that kind of stuff. So for example, Larry, if you can demo Sentinel, how you as a SOC analyst triage things. I mean, no one's doing that right now. I'm not aware of a single SOC analyst putting out content about Sentinel on YouTube, showing people how to triage real world events. You're going to have to do some extra work to kind of blur out some customer information. It's going to take some work, but if you did, I just got this thing, this happened, blur out some of the customer stuff. If you put that out there, imagine all the SOC analysts that can learn from you and do that. I think that would, that's one idea if you're into video editing and that sort of stuff. Adam, I want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, sharing your story with us and your journey.
Thanks,
Adam. There's so many of that, Adam, appreciate you on social media. I do sincerely love your content. Keep up the great work. And yeah, we just love what you're doing, man.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, I need to learn more about Larry's story because that's incredibly inspiring. So yeah, thank you, Larry, for having the chat about that. And Joe, thank you very much for responding to my call, for getting out there. And this has been awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, Adam, thanks again. We'll see you online.
Thanks, Adam.
Take care.
No worries. Thank you, Joe and Larry. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
appreciate it.